Welcome back, Jim Broomall again, and what I'm going to do here is really give us one, a geographical orientation, and two, I want us to think a bit about the psychology of the soldiers coming into this fight. So I'm going to trace this action through the lens of one man, Leonidas Torrance of the 23rd North Carolina, who was part of Iverson's brigade. But before getting into that detail, I want to first give us a little bit of orientation as to where we are and to kind of pick up on some of the themes that Daryl offered so nicely just a few minutes ago. So to my roughly north is Oak Hill, which today obviously is the spot of the Eternal Peace Monument. As we come around, we'll see Oak Ridge, which is going to play into the action of which I'll speak in a bit. As we continue to turn quite dramatically at this point, we're going to catch a view of McPherson's Woods and McPherson's Ridge off in the distance, which at this point is out of your eyesight, out of my eyesight. And then finally, of course, the Appalachian Mountains. And indeed, this countryside, which is so striking today, was something upon which many of Lee's men commented as they marched north into Pennsylvania, talking about, although the farmsteads were of different size than the ones they are used to in Virginia or North Carolina, they recognized this as bountiful, beautiful country. They were also quite alarmed at the number of men, the number of citizens, farmers on the fields, giving them perhaps for the first time a real glimpse, a real comprehension of the scale of the northern population that confronted them by the mid-war period. But as I promised, what I want to do is give us some orientation and then talk a bit about the psychology of the soldiers. So one of the men I'm going to follow, as I said, is Leonidas Torrance. Torrance was, by this time, a veteran of the 1862 Peninsula Campaign, and he was a veteran of the significant battle at Chancellorsville. And I think what's so remarkable about Torrance's letters is the ways in which he describes these actions over time to his family. So at the peninsula, still relatively green, Torrance talks about going into the action. He talks a bit about how some spent balls clipped his clothing, but it's a relatively mundane letter, didn't reveal too much to his family. In May of 1863, however, all of that changes quite dramatically. On the battlefield at Chancellorsville, in the fields and in the woods, he became horrified by the sights that he saw. And if you'll bear with me here for a minute, I would like to read one of his letters that he composed to his mother. Mother, I thought I had saw as distressing sights on the battlefield as I ever could look at. The men killed and wounded where we fought last Sunday. The burns, the woods set on fire, a fire, and to look at the killed and wounded men burning last night was the worst looking sight I ever saw or heard of. That phrase, the worst looking sight I ever saw or heard of. Again, Torrance is on the battlefield, and around him the trees are literally in flames, the wounded are crying out. And he is profoundly distressed by the bodies that he sees writhing in pain, by the wounded that he's seen across this battlefield. And what we see by the roughly midpoint of the war, they didn't know, of course, that was the midpoint of the war, but we know it today, Lee's veterans, they're veteran soldiers who are also getting a bit inured to this pain and suffering, but are also becoming profoundly shaken by the sights and sounds of these battlefields, and in some instances horrified to note they're going to have to see these same sights, hear these same sounds again on these battlefields. So what I'm going to do today, after this orientation, is we're going to move to a different part of the field, and then we're going to dig deeply into the action of Iverson, and we're going to see it through the lens of one man. And then we're going to look at his experiences, not through his letter, but the letter of one of his messmates. And so that's what we're going to do in this next segment of the live stream. So tune back in probably about 10 minutes time. Thank you.